Okay, just point out to Atara. So I'll get into the video now. Just bear with me. We're just showing you a little bit of interesting native wildlife where I am. I might have some more flying around me as I do this video. I'll just crack straight into it. I've noticed in the analytics people like me to do that, so I'll tell you what the little lizard is at the end. Right, so please refer to the disclaimer in the description box below if you have not already done so. I will get straight into it. I had this dream at some point in the last 5 weeks. I don't recall the exact date. I may be able to find it in my dream journal in the future, put it in the description box, but it's not too important for now. There are dreams and there are dreamers. There are dreams you remember and there are dreams you can't forget. I am a dreamer and this dream is of the latter category, memorable. Don't have to make any effort to remember, it just sticks with you. So, in this dream, as I have been in some other prophetic dreams recently, I was standing on the corner of Rimu Street and Muritai Road in Eastbourne, which is the suburb on the eastern side of Wellington Harbour, Wellington City, capital city of New Zealand. I'm actually on the western side of Wellington City now, currently filming this in Zealandia Wildlife Sanctuary. And I was standing on the corner of the street. I'll put a pin to the location where I was on Google Maps below so you can see for reference where it is. Incidentally, that whole spot is going to get smashed by tsunamis shortly based upon what I've been shown in other dreams, which I've done videos about extensively. That'll be 15 meters high, so it's all going to look quite different soon. But I was on the corner of the street and the Holy Spirit, Sophia, started showing me stuff, and I was shown a scene of some Westerners, but they looked more Anglo-Saxon than European. They looked more like, so American, British, Canadian, Australian, New Zealand. Those are the 5 core Anglo-Saxon countries in the Anglosphere. And they were seated around a table, and there were men and women. Some of the men, there's no judgment, I'm just telling you what was shown. Some of the men were quite sort of not masculine, I would say, and some were actually quite effeminate. There were some gay guys there. And it's not to say that I'm not sure. I'm not saying your sexuality has any bearing on how tough you are, but in this case, these were not strong men. And the women were kind of a bit, they weren't that feminine. They were not. The women were kind of not that feminine. The men weren't that masculine. They were both everyone was a bit confused, and they were soft. They were not strong. That was the overall impression I got. And they were seated around a table, and it was like they were at a party. And then the scene switched, and I could see it was like a party. It looked like it could be somewhere in the US, but it was sort of a mix of that, and could be New Zealand, Australia, the UK, or Canada. But it was more Anglo-Saxon countries, and there were like 50 people. And yeah, I got a panning shot, and they were it was a party, but everyone was drinking. There was a lot of sin, a lot of vice. It's just migrating, lost behavior that reflects the loss of our foundations as Christian societies, which we're meant to be. And also, like I said, a lot of the men weren't very masculine, a lot of the women weren't very feminine. I had another dream about that a couple of years ago where God told me by the Holy Spirit that when men act like women and women act like men, it creates, quote, psychic schizophrenia, and it makes them weak, confused, and it disempowers them. And in the current level of consciousness that the Western countries are in, and just kind of where they're at in the evolution of consciousness, especially with the whole woke thing, we do have a lot of men who are not very masculine, and or men who are actually acting like women. I'm not judging it. I'm genuinely, because we're not. Who am I to judge, and B, that's Christian teaching. Like, don't judge people. I'm just being honest. We have a lot of men acting like women, a lot of women acting like men, and a lot of people who are really confused. And there's a lot of sin in general. And then the scene switched from these kind of parties in the West, and it was showing these Russian soldiers, and they looked really strong, and they had their uniforms on, they had assault rifles. And Sophia said, she said Russian soldiers are much, much tougher than Western soldiers. And she said, but they're not just a little bit tougher. She said they're four times tougher than Western soldiers. And that was pretty much it. But there's a little bit to unpack in terms of the interpretation and kind of the background. Okay, so first of all, it makes sense if you really think about it. If you zoom out from a 35,000 foot, quote, satellite view, take a really, like looking down on the planet at the big scheme of things on Earth right now. I mean, the Russians have been fighting in Ukraine for what? Well, over 10 years on a limited basis, on a full-on, all-out war, World War III level since, early 2020, I think it was March 2022, almost 3 years. And they're winning. So their soldiers have all this combat experience. They're veterans. They've got, I think they've got 1 million active duty personnel, and huge numbers of them are military veterans now, and they've been in the war for years. And Russia is constantly updating their SOP, standard operating procedure for the military, and they're learning and adapting tactics and evolving really quickly, and they're winning. Like from a Western perspective, that's the scary thing, not taking sides. They have 80% of casualties in modern warfare are from artillery. Russia has an 8-to-1 advantage. There's a ratio of 8-to-1 advantage in terms of their numbers of artillery pieces to what Ukraine has. And then the Western media tells us that there's 3 Russians dying for every Ukrainian. Go figure. It's obviously a lie. And it's a separate topic. It's a tangent. But I just find it so tragic. These two white Christian nations slaughtering each other, and there's probably probably 750,000 young Ukrainian men dead, like a whole generation wiped out, so many widows and young women who have lost their boyfriends. It's just, and then huge numbers of Russians dying on the other side. It's tragic, but I think it's for me it's particularly tragic because these are kind of brother countries in this case, and most Ukrainians want peace by this point, but the West doesn't want that. It's like led by the US government, which has been corrupted and controlled by Israel and Zionists. They want to fight to the last Ukrainian. Like it kind of looks like they want depopulation. They're talking about lowering the draft age to recruit 18-year-olds now. It's like, you just want to. I guess your main goal here is just to kill everyone in the country and depopulate it. I honestly think that's part of it, is a depopulation agenda. But yeah, Russia as an empire is ascending. They're strong, they're masculine, they're Christian, they're hardened warriors. The West is increasingly pagan and satanic. A lot of Western countries are no longer Christian countries. New Zealand's included in that number. We're descending, we're declining, we're weakening. And Russia's strengthened, there's unity in Russia, and there's division in the West. And we're meeting at a point, it's like X marks the spot. We're declining, they're ascending. We're going to meet in the middle, and it's just, man, it's not looking good. The early stages of this war are going to be really tough for us because our people aren't strong in terms of where we are in the life cycle of our countries. There's a good book called The Fourth Turning by Strauss and Howe. And they actually predicted 30 or 40 years ago, World War III, mid-20s. And it's happening exactly on course as they'd predicted based on historical cycles they'd studied. And yes, this is God just showing me via the Holy Spirit's fear that we're in trouble in terms of where we are in the collective evolution of our respective civilizations and countries and consciousness, and also just the cycles of empire. It just goes up and down like that. But Russia's ascending, and we're descending. We're going to meet in the middle. They've got all this combat experience, and especially the Anglo-Saxons. We're sheltered on our little island countries. New Zealand and Australia are islands. Britain's an island. Canada's like an island culturally. We've just got a border with the US, but it's almost the same culture. And the US has only got a border with one other country, which is different culturally, which is Mexico. We're all sitting off on our islands, and we're insulated from the war, far away. But the Russians have been fighting for a long time, and they're really tough. And when it finally reaches us and we have to fight, it's going to be bad. So that's it. So the lizard I showed you at the beginning of the video is a tuatara. Put some info about them in the description box below. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.